Have you ever noticed how some people in relationships seem completely normal? Everything feels smooth, and then suddenly, almost out of nowhere, they make a move that changes everything. One moment, it feels like the bond is getting deeper, and the very next moment, they vanish into thin air. Calls are ignored, texts take hours to reply to, and their warmth suddenly turns into cold distance. That sudden twist isn't random. It's not just mood swings or bad timing. What you're actually seeing is their final card. But here's the real question. What is this final card? And why do avoidants always play it right at the very end? You see, people with avoidant personalities or avoidant attachment styles follow a very unique pattern. The moment they sense that their freedom, their space or their comfort zone is under threat, something inside them flips. They activate a hidden strategy. On the outside it looks like they don't care. It looks like they're pulling away, because the relationship doesn't matter. But inside, it's a completely different story. That final card is their way of protecting themselves, of regaining control over emotions that feel way too overwhelming. From your side, it feels like rejection. It feels like they never valued the relationship in the first place. But in reality, that final card is a signal, a sign that they've hit their emotional threshold. And here's the twist. That card is so powerful that it can either shut the entire relationship down, or flip the story into an entirely new chapter. So if you've ever wondered why avoidants play this final card, and what it really means for the future of a relationship, stay with me until the end. Because what I'm about to share might give you a completely new lens to see your own experiences. When we talk about avoidance, we're not just throwing around a label. These are people who carry a very specific emotional blueprint inside them. Avoidants are the ones who often struggle with intimacy, not because they don't want love, not because they don't value connection, but because deep down closeness feels unsafe to them. Think about it like this. For most people, the closer you get to someone, the safer you feel. But for avoidants, the closer they get, the more threatened they feel. Intimacy triggers alarm bells. Their mind starts whispering, what if I lose myself? What if I get trapped? What if I open up and then get hurt? That fear is not loud or obvious, but it quietly guides their actions in almost every relationship. So what happens when a relationship starts getting emotionally intense? When their partner starts expecting more closeness, more consistency, more vulnerability, that's when avoidants reach for their secret weapon, their final move. It's not something they plan consciously, it's almost automatic. One part of them may want love, but another part is screaming for escape, and in that tug of war, the escape usually wins. Now, here's where it gets interesting. To the partner, it looks like avoidants are careless, selfish, or even manipulative. You might think, they just walked away. They don't even care about what we built together. But inside the avoidant, the story is very different. They're not rejecting love. They're trying to protect themselves from the intensity of it. And this is exactly why their final card is so confusing, because it doesn't come from a place of cruelty. It comes from a place of fear. Yet for the person on the other side, it feels like the ultimate betrayal. So before we dive deeper into what that final card looks like, you need to understand this foundation. Avoidants don't pull away because they hate you. They pull away because intimacy feels like too much, too fast. And the way they play their final card is their attempt to survive that storm of emotions. But here's the twist. The very thing they use to protect themselves ends up hurting the relationship the most. Keep this in mind as we move forward, because once you see the psychology behind their move, the entire pattern of avoidance will suddenly make a lot more sense. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you're in a relationship that feels completely fine. You both laugh together, share your routines, and maybe even dream a little about the future. Nothing seems off. In fact, everything feels safe. But then something subtle begins to change. At first, you can't even put your finger on it. Maybe they stop replying as quickly as they used to. Maybe their voice on the phone doesn't sound as warm anymore. They're still there, but somehow, You can feel a wall slowly rising between you. You tell yourself it's nothing. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe it's stress. But deep down, you can sense that something is shifting. The calls that used to last hours now end in minutes. The goodnight texts that felt so natural suddenly take effort, or don't come at all. And then before you even realize it, the distance is undeniable. They start avoiding plans. They cancel last minute. They seem distracted when you're together, almost like their body is in the room, but their heart is somewhere else. It feels like you're knocking on a door that used to be open, but now it's locked from the inside. Here's the hard part. You didn't see it coming. Just a week ago, they were laughing with you, holding your hand, making you feel like everything was okay. And now, it's like you're trying to reach someone through glass. You can see them, but you can't touch them. That's what it feels like when an avoidant starts preparing their final card. From the outside, it looks like coldness. From the inside, it's panic. They're not trying to hurt you. They're trying to protect themselves. But in doing so, they create exactly the pain they fear. And the confusion for you, their partner, is overwhelming. You're left asking, was any of it even real? Did I imagine the connection? Or did they just change overnight? This is the relatable build-up, the calm before the storm, the shift from closeness to distance, and unless you know what's really happening, it feels like you're losing someone without even understanding why. But that's exactly where the psychology of their final card comes in, and once you see it, the pattern will finally make sense. So what exactly is this final card? If we strip away the confusion, the heartbreak, and the mixed signals, the truth is simple. It's a defense mechanism. For avoidance, closeness feels risky. Vulnerability feels like walking into danger. So when they sense that the relationship is demanding too much intimacy, their nervous system does something automatic. It pulls the emergency brake. That emergency brake is their final card. Now here's the tricky part. From the outside, it looks like cold rejection. They distance themselves. They stop sharing. Sometimes they even walk away, as if it doesn't matter at all. To you, it feels like they've erased the relationship in seconds. But inside them, this isn't about not caring. It's about survival. Think of it this way. When most people feel threatened, they fight or they freeze. Avoidance. They flee. Running away, whether emotionally or physically, is their way of staying safe. By shutting the door, by pretending it doesn't hurt, they protect themselves from the terrifying experience of being exposed, vulnerable, or dependent on someone else. It's not that they don't feel. In fact, they often feel too much. The intensity of intimacy overwhelms them, but because they never learned how to sit with that intensity, their brain only knows one move: escape, and that escape, disguised as indifference, becomes their final card. Here's the irony. The very thing they use to avoid pain ends up creating more of it. For their partner, it feels like betrayal. For themselves, it creates loneliness. Yet in the moment, it feels like the safest option they have. Understanding this changes everything. Because once you realize their final card isn't about punishing you, but about protecting themselves, the picture becomes clearer. It doesn't excuse the hurt it causes, but it explains why it happens. So remember this: when an avoidant plays their final card, it's not because they never cared. It's because caring became too dangerous in their mind. And until you see that psychology at play, the move will always look like a mystery. But once you do, you'll finally start to see the pattern for what it really is: fear dressed up as indifference. And here's where the real irony hits. The avoidance final card isn't about punishing you. It isn't about proving they never cared, and it certainly isn't about manipulation. At its core, it's only about one thing: protection. They are desperately trying to shield themselves from a kind of emotional closeness that feels unbearable. But here's the painful twist. While they believe they are protecting themselves, what their partner experiences feels completely different. To the person on the receiving end, it looks like the entire relationship was a lie. It feels like all those late-night talks, The shared laughter, the small promises, none of it meant anything. That's the cruel paradox of the avoidance final card. What they intend and what their partner experiences couldn't be further apart. For the avoidant, the card is a shield. For their partner, it feels like a knife. Imagine you've invested your time, your emotions, your trust into someone, and right when you thought things were deepening, they slam the door shut. You're left standing outside, wondering, did I imagine everything? Was I blind this whole time? The confusion is almost worse than the pain, because at least with clear rejection you know where you stand. But with avoidance, their move looks like a complete rewrite of history, as if the bond you felt so strongly was never even real. That's why this final card feels so brutal. It's not just about distance, it's about erasure. The partner starts to question their own reality. If they can walk away this easily, did they ever truly love me? The irony, of course, is that the answer is often yes. They did care, sometimes deeply. But their fear, their need for control, their instinct to protect themselves, overshadows that care, and in the process, they end up hurting the very person who meant something to them. So the contrast is clear. In their world they're fighting for survival. In your world, it looks like they've destroyed everything. Two completely different realities, colliding in one painful moment. And that's exactly why understanding this contrast is so important, because without it, all you see is betrayal. With it you finally see the hidden fear that drives the move. Let's take a real example. Imagine you're with someone you truly love. Things aren't perfect, but you've shared moments that felt real, laughing together, comforting each other, talking about the future. You start to believe that the relationship is moving forward, but then, out of nowhere your partner says, I think I need some space. At first you might not panic. Space can be healthy, right? Everyone needs a little breathing room sometimes. But as days pass, that so-called space begins to stretch. Calls become fewer, texts get colder, and your partner starts pulling away more and more. Here's what's really happening. When an avoidant says I need space, what they're actually saying is I need control. They feel the closeness closing in on them, and their final card is to push you back, not because they don't feel anything, but because they feel too much. That request for space isn't about relaxation, it's about survival, and the most heartbreaking part. To the partner, it feels like abandonment. You replay every moment, every word, wondering what went wrong. Was I too much? Did I push them away? Were they never serious about me? You search for answers, but all you get is silence. For the avoidant, this silence feels like safety. For you, it feels like torture. The gap between what they mean and what you experience grows wider with every passing day. And this is the final card in action. A move that looks small on the surface but changes everything underneath. Think about it. 3 simple words. I need space. And suddenly the relationship is hanging by a thread. You don't know if they'll come back, if they've already left in their mind, or if you've just witnessed the quiet end of something that once felt so alive. That's why this case study matters. It shows how avoidance turned fear into distance, and distance into control. They protect themselves by pulling away, but in doing so they break the very connection they once cherished. And if you've ever heard those words, I need space, you know the confusion, the ache, and the helplessness that final card leaves behind. It's really important to pause here and understand something that often gets overlooked. Avoidants don't play their final card out of cruelty. They don't wake up one morning thinking, how can I hurt my partner today? That's not the story at all. What's really happening is that avoidants are running on survival mode. Their nervous system is wired in a way that when emotions get too intense, they don't lean in, they pull away. The moment they feel emotionally overwhelmed, their brain hits what I like to call the escape button. Think about it. For someone with an avoidant pattern, closeness feels dangerous, almost like standing too close to the edge of a cliff. Every step nearer creates more panic inside. So when they suddenly distance themselves, it's not because they hate you. It's because their mind is screaming, this is too much, I can't handle it, I need to get away. Now here's the empathetic shift. Imagine living in a world where love, the very thing most of us crave, feels like a threat. Imagine how exhausting it must be to want connection and yet fear it at the same time. That's the inner world of an avoidant. They're not villains. They're people caught in a cycle they don't fully understand themselves. Yes, their final card hurts. Yes, it can break relationships. But when you see it through the lens of survival rather than malice, you begin to recognize the deeper truth. This is their way of coping. It's messy. It's painful. But it's not intentionally cruel. And here's something even more powerful. Many avoidants don't even realize they're doing it. To them, pulling away feels natural, even logical. They convince themselves that needing space is rational. But beneath that logic is fear. And beneath that fear is vulnerability. They don't know how to show. So the next time you see an avoidant pressing that escape button, remember you're not dealing with someone who doesn't care. You're dealing with someone who cares so much that it terrifies them. Their withdrawal isn't proof of indifference, it's proof of overwhelm. And understanding this doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you clarity. It reminds you that their behavior is a pattern of survival, not a personal attack. So the next time you see someone play their final card, pulling away, asking for space, or shutting down emotionally, don't rush to assume it's the end of the story. Don't immediately think they never cared. Because more often than not, what you're really witnessing is fear disguised as indifference. That final card isn't proof that the relationship was fake. It's a sign that the person is overwhelmed, that their survival instincts are louder than their desire for closeness. And when you see it through that lens, it changes everything. You stop taking it as a personal failure and start recognizing it as a pattern, one that's painful but not hopeless. Now here's the important part. Understanding avoidance is just the beginning. The real question is, can you build a healthy bond with them? Can love survive when fear keeps showing up? That's where the real work begins. And if you're curious about that, if you want me to break down the steps, the do's and don'ts, and the real ways to create stability with an avoidant partner, then drop a comment below and let me know. Because that's exactly what I'll cover in the next video. Also, don't forget to hit the like button if this video gave you clarity. Share it with someone who might need to hear this, and subscribe so you don't miss the follow-up. Trust me, you'll want to be there when I reveal how to turn fear into connection, and distance into real intimacy. This conversation isn't ending here, it's just getting started.